My name is Avril Vance. I am 31 years old, and for the past decade, I've lived a life shrouded in secrets. Not my own secrets, but the government's blank. I'm an analyst for the National Cyber Warfare Division, a highly classified agency tasked with defending our nation's digital infrastructure from invisible enemies. My days are spent navigating the darkest corners of the internet, tracking phantom adversaries, and building firewalls against threats most people can't even imagine. I've uncovered global espionage rings, thwarted cyber attacks that could cripple entire cities, and worn the silent, heavy weight of classified information that keeps millions safe. My work is meticulous, isolating, and often terrifying. But the worst betrayal I ever faced didn't come from foreign adversaries in the digital realm. It came from the people who were supposed to love me the most, my own family, and it happened in a courtroom. I still remember the way they looked at me that morning. My parents, Robert and Beatrice, my younger brother Ethan, and his wife Chloe. Faces I had known all my life, suddenly unfamiliar, cold, meticulously rehearsed in their expressions of disdain. The air in the opulent, wood-paneled courtroom felt thick and suffocating, laced with the acrid scent of old paper and thinly veiled contempt. Sunlight, filtered through tall, arched windows, cast long, judgmental shadows across the polished marble floor. They called me a failure. They mocked me for abandoning the family's venerable, generations-old law firm, Vance & Sons, to pursue a career in what they dismissively called computer nonsense. They said I was mentally unstable, unfit to make decisions, unworthy of the inheritance they believed I no longer deserved. They demanded everything: the historic brownstone in Boston where I grew up, the quiet family trust my grandfather had established in my name, even custody of my own name, my place in our family's history, as if they could simply erase me from existence. I stood there in a tailored, dark navy suit, not my uniform, but a professional armor, listening to my own mother speak about me as if I were a stranger, a criminal. Her voice, usually so saccharine and controlled, was now a weapon, sharp with venomous accusations. My father, Robert, once my idol, sat beside her, nodding solemnly, his face a mask of faint heartbreak, as if this cruel courtroom drama was somehow breaking his heart. Ethan and Chloe sat side by side, hands clasped, their expressions a sickening blend of smug satisfaction and righteous indignation. It hadn't always been like this. Once, our family portrait was a picture of harmony, albeit a rigid one. My father, a titan of corporate law, presided over our lives with an iron fist disguised in velvet gloves. My mother, a former debutante, managed our social standing with ruthless precision. Sophia, my older sister, had dutifully married into old Boston money. Her life, a glittering succession of charity galas and exclusive club memberships. Ethan, my younger brother, was groomed from birth to inherit the firm, a path he embraced with uncritical enthusiasm. I was the wild card, the one who saw the strings being pulled, who bristled under the weight of expectation. From a young age, I was fascinated by patterns, by hidden connections, by the unseen forces that shape the world. While my siblings debated legal precedents over dinner, I was dissecting old radios, taking apart computers, trying to understand their inner workings. I spent hours in my room, not with law books, but with coding manuals, teaching myself obscure languages, finding beauty in algorithms and logic. When I announced, after graduating high school at the top of my class, that I was turning down a full scholarship to Harvard Law for a lesser-known but cutting-edge program in cybersecurity at MIT, the reaction was immediate and explosive. Cybersecurity, Avril? My father's voice had been a low rumble of disbelief, then a roar of outrage. What in God's name is that? A hobby? Vance & Sons has a legacy, a future. You're throwing it all away for hacking? My mother burst into tears. This is not what Thorndike women do, Avril. You'll be wasting your potential. What will people say? My sisters, usually so quick to judge, were uncharacteristically silent, their expressions a mix of pity and relief that I was the one bearing the family's collective disappointment this time. Ethan, ever the obedient son, looked genuinely confused. He couldn't fathom a life outside the hallowed halls of their law firm. The years that followed were defined by a widening chasm. I excelled at MIT, my unconventional interests blooming into a passion. I was recruited directly into the government's highly secretive cyber warfare division, a world away from the legal libraries and socialite dinners of Boston. While my family meticulously climbed the social and professional ladders, I was working in secure, windowless facilities, battling unseen enemies in the digital ether. My occasional calls home were met with polite disinterest, thinly veiled criticisms of my unconventional life, and repeated heavy-handed hints about the stability and prestige I was missing out on. They continued to refer to me as if I were a wayward child, an eccentric aunt, rather than a top-tier intelligence operative. The real trouble started a year ago, when grandfather Arthur Vance, the patriarch who had founded Vance & Sons, passed away. He was the only one who had ever truly seen me, who understood my passion for logic and systems, however different from his own. He'd secretly encouraged my pursuit of technology, even slipping me books on cryptography when I was a teenager. He'd left a small private trust for each of his grandchildren, meant to be an independent nest egg, outside the family firm's influence. Mine was substantial, enough to provide a secure future, if not a lavish one by Thorndike standards. After his passing, the atmosphere within the family shifted, becoming colder, more predatory. My father, Robert, had always been the controlling one, his grip tightening as he aged. He saw grandfather's trusts as a personal affront, a challenge to his absolute authority over the family finances. He insisted on managing them all, for the good of the family, as he put it. My sisters, entangled in their own marital and financial anxieties, meekly agreed. Ethan, as usual, simply followed his father's lead. I, however, refused. "This is grandfather's legacy, Dad," I'd argued during a tense family dinner. "He intended these trusts to be independent. I can manage my own finances." His face had darkened. "Don't be foolish, Avril. You live in some secret government facility. You don't understand real-world finance. You'll squander it. It's for your own good, for the family's reputation." The argument escalated. He declared me unfit, irresponsible, mentally unstable for daring to defy him. He threatened legal action, something I, a cyber expert, knew little about. But then, to my shock, my own mother sided with him, whispering about duty and family honor. My sisters, jealous of my independent wealth, nodded in agreement. Ethan, true to form, parroted his father's arguments. That's when I saw it. The glint in their eyes wasn't just about control or money, it was about erasure. They wanted to prove that my chosen path was a failure, that I couldn't manage my own life, that I needed their guidance. They wanted to seize my trust, not just for financial gain, but as the ultimate symbol of their victory over my independence. They wanted to drag me back into their world, subservient and broken. So here I was, in court, facing my family, my own blood, as adversaries. Their lawyer, a slick, self-important man named Mr. Maxwell, droned on about my erratic behavior, my unconventional lifestyle, and my questionable career choices. He painted a picture of me as a recluse, a social misfit, someone utterly incapable of handling complex financial matters. He even brought up my long hours, my infrequent visits home, portraying them as evidence of my disengagement and unreliability. "Miss Vance," Mr. Maxwell sneered, turning his gaze on me, "you barely see your family. You avoid social functions. You work in some secretive government bureau. How can you possibly claim to understand the responsibilities of managing a significant family inheritance?" I met his gaze, my expression unreadable. "My work requires discretion, Mr. Maxwell. It also requires a profound understanding of complex systems, critical decision-making under pressure, and absolute, unwavering integrity. Qualities, I might add, that are highly relevant to managing any significant responsibility." My father let out a dismissive scoff, which the judge sternly ignored. The proceedings continued, hour after agonizing hour. They paraded witnesses, distant cousins, family friends, who testified about my coldness, my lack of interest in family affairs, my reclusive nature. They presented fabricated documents, manipulated financial records, designed to show my supposed incompetence. It was a well-orchestrated smear campaign, designed to strip me of everything. Not just my money, but my dignity, my very identity. I sat there, calm on the surface, but a storm brewed beneath. They thought they had me. They thought they had exposed my weakness, my vulnerability. They didn't know that for years I had been honing my skills, not just in cyber defense, but in observation, in pattern recognition, in the art of uncovering hidden truths. My work trained me to see beyond the surface, to identify anomalies, to track the faintest digital footprints. And in the months leading up to this trial, I had applied those same skills to my own family. I had always known my father was ambitious, ruthless in business, but something about their sudden, aggressive pursuit of my inheritance, their desperate need to control it, felt off. It was too intense, too desperate. It wasn't just about maintaining control, it was about hiding something. So quietly, meticulously, using only tools and methods that were strictly legal and within my ethical boundaries, I began to investigate. I looked for digital trails, for financial anomalies, for the whispers of data that could reveal a hidden truth. My official government access was never used, of course. My personal network of white hat hackers, forensic accountants, and private investigators was more than sufficient. What I found was far more disturbing than I could have ever imagined. It started with small discrepancies in the firm's financial statements, then larger ones, shell corporations, offshore accounts, a dizzying web of illicit transactions. It wasn't just about grandfather's trusts. It was about something much bigger, something rotten at the core of Vance & Sons. My father, the pillar of Boston's legal community, was involved in something far more sinister than I could have comprehended, and Ethan, his obedient son, was a willing participant. The day before the trial, I had approached the authorities. Not just any authorities, but a specialized task force, an elite unit within the FBI's cybercrime division that I had quietly cultivated relationships with over years of joint operations. They listened, initially skeptical, but then growing increasingly grim as I laid out my findings, piece by meticulous piece. I didn't have just suspicions. I had hard data, encrypted communications, untraceable financial transfers, shadow accounts, and a complex digital signature that pointed to a sophisticated money laundering operation that used Vance & Sons as its clean front. The scale of it was staggering. The sheer audacity of it breathtaking. It stretched far beyond Boston, touching international criminal syndicates, corrupt politicians, and even, chillingly, elements within our own government. They were stunned, Miss. Vance, the lead agent, a seasoned veteran named Agent Miller, had said, his voice hushed with a mixture of awe and alarm. If this is true, this could bring down an empire. A lot of very powerful people. It's true, Agent Miller, I had replied, my voice steady, my gaze unwavering. And my family is at the center of it. Not just my father, but Ethan. They've been laundering money for years, using the firm's legitimate reputation as a shield. The decision to expose them had been agonizing. This was my family, my blood. The very people who had once held me in their arms, who had taught me to walk, to read, but they had chosen their path. They had chosen greed and corruption over integrity, and they had chosen to drag me through the mud, to invalidate my life, to strip me of my inheritance, all to cover their own tracks. My duty, my moral compass, had pointed me toward a single, unavoidable truth. Sometimes, the greatest betrayal isn't just personal. It's a crime against society, and it demands justice. So, as Mr. Maxwell finished his condescending summation, portraying me as a deluded, incompetent outcast, I rose. Your Honor, I said, my voice clear and strong, cutting through the courtroom's tense silence, I have one more piece of evidence I'd like to present. My family exchanged smug glances. They thought it was another desperate attempt to defend myself, another futile plea. The judge, a weary but fair woman named Judge Albright, nodded. "Proceed, Miss Vance." I reached into my briefcase, not for a thick legal brief, but for a single, unassuming manila envelope. I walked deliberately to the witness stand, my eyes sweeping across my family's faces, memorizing their arrogant smiles, their complacent expressions. This was the moment, the turning point, the very instant their carefully constructed world would implode. "This, Your Honor," I began, my voice ringing with a newfound authority, "is not a defense of my character or my competence. It is an indictment." A ripple of murmurs went through the courtroom. My father frowned, his brow furrowing in confusion. Ethan shifted uneasily. "This envelope," I continued, holding it aloft, "contains a meticulously compiled, irrefutable digital ledger. It details years of illicit financial transactions, shell corporations, and offshore accounts used to launder hundreds of millions of dollars through the very firm my father and brother currently lead, Vance & Sons." The murmurs swelled to a stunned gasp. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Sophia and Claire stared, their faces draining of color. My father half rose from his seat, his eyes wide with a dawning, terrifying realization. "What are you talking about, Avril? This is insane!" he bellowed, his voice cracking. "Silence, Mr. Vance!" Judge Albright snapped, banging her gavel. "This ledger," I continued, my gaze fixed on my father's horrified face, "was delivered to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, specifically the Cybercrime Division, yesterday evening. They have confirmed its authenticity. They have corroborated its findings. And based on this evidence, they have already secured warrants for the arrests of Robert Vance and Ethan Vance, as well as several high-ranking partners within the firm." A gasp. A collective intake of breath. The courtroom erupted into utter chaos. Shouts. Cries of disbelief. My mother let out a strangled sob. Ethan, for the first time in his life, looked utterly, profoundly terrified. Just then, the double doors at the back of the courtroom burst open. A phalanx of grim-faced FBI agents, led by Agent Miller, stormed in. They were wearing dark tactical vests. Their presence, an immediate, undeniable declaration of power and authority. Their eyes scanned the room, then locked onto my father and brother. "Robert Vance! Ethan Vance!" Agent Miller's voice boomed, cutting through the pandemonium. "You are under arrest for money laundering, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." My father, once so imperious, so utterly in control, looked like a broken man. His face was ashen, his mouth agape, unable to form a single word. Ethan, pale and trembling, tried to protest, but two agents were already at his side, cuffing him with professional efficiency. Chloe screamed, a high, piercing sound of pure terror. My mother collapsed into Sophia's arms, weeping uncontrollably. Claire simply stared, her face blank with shock, as if witnessing a scene from a nightmare. I stood there, watching. As the agents led my father and brother out of the courtroom, their confident strides now shackled by justice. The room was a whirlwind of flashing cameras, frantic reporters, and stunned spectators. Judge Albright, regaining her composure, slammed her gavel down repeatedly. "Order! Order in this court!" she commanded, her voice strained. But order was a distant memory. My family's world, built on a foundation of lies and illicit wealth, had just spectacularly imploded, and I, the supposed failure, had been the one to light the fuse. I didn't feel triumph. Not exactly. There was a profound sadness, a heavy weight in my chest for the family I had lost, the father I had once revered. But beneath that sadness, there was also a fierce, quiet satisfaction. I had chosen integrity over complicity, justice over blind loyalty. I had stood alone against them, and I had prevailed. I had proven, not just to them, but to myself, that my worth was not determined by their approval, but by my own unwavering adherence to truth and justice. The next few weeks were a blur of federal investigations, grand jury testimonies, and relentless media scrutiny. The Vance and Son scandal became a national headline, a cautionary tale of unchecked greed and family corruption. The firm, once a symbol of Boston's elite, was dismantled, its assets seized, its reputation in tatters. Hundreds of employees lost their jobs, their lives upended by the criminal actions of the very men they had trusted. It was a tragedy, a bitter harvest of years of deceit. My father and Ethan faced a barrage of charges, their legal defense a desperate, losing battle against the mountain of evidence I had meticulously compiled. My testimony was crucial, undeniable. I laid out every detail, every illicit transaction, every coded communication, leaving no room for doubt. It was agonizing, seeing the men who had raised me sitting across the courtroom, their faces drawn and defeated, but my resolve never wavered. Justice, however painful, had to be served. My mother, Eleanor, and my sisters, Sophia and Claire, emerged from the wreckage, their lives irrevocably altered. They were questioned extensively by federal agents, though they were not implicated in the criminal activities. Their crime, if it could be called that, was willful blindness, a comfortable complicity in the opulence financed by illicit means. They lost everything: the historic brownstone, their lavish lifestyles, their prestigious social standing. The very foundation of their existence, built on money and reputation, had crumbled to dust. My mother, once so elegant and composed, became a shadow of her former self. I saw her once, months after the trial, shopping alone in a discount grocery store, her designer clothes replaced by faded, ill-fitting attire. She looked frail, bewildered, like a bird whose gilded cage had been suddenly ripped away. She saw me, her eyes widening in a mixture of fear and something that might have been profound shame. She looked away quickly, hurrying down another aisle, unable to meet my gaze. I felt a pang of pity, but no regret. This was the consequence of their choices, the bitter fruit of their own making. Sophia and Claire, stripped of their inherited wealth and social connections, had to forge new lives. Sophia, surprisingly, found a new path. She enrolled in a program for forensic accounting, channeling her sharp legal mind into uncovering financial fraud, perhaps seeking a form of atonement, or simply a new way to survive. Claire, after a period of deep depression and public humiliation, reinvented herself as a small business owner, opening a local bakery. The irony was not lost on me. The women who had once mocked my unconventional life were now living lives far more unconventional than anything they could have ever imagined. I, meanwhile, returned to my work, to the quiet anonymity of the National Cyber Warfare Division. The public knew my name as the whistleblower in the Vance and Sons scandal, the courageous daughter who exposed her own family. But my real work, the work that truly defined me, remained hidden, a silent defense against the unseen threats that lurked in the digital shadows. The agency, recognizing my unwavering integrity and strategic brilliance, promoted me quickly, entrusting me with even greater responsibilities, leading highly sensitive operations that stretched across continents. The betrayal had left scars, deep and indelible. The pain of being disowned, of being called a failure, of standing alone against my own blood, would never fully fade. But it had also forged me, refined me, made me stronger than I ever thought possible. It had taught me the true meaning of resilience, the profound power of self-reliance, and the absolute necessity of living by my own moral compass, regardless of the cost. I had lost a family, but I had gained something far more valuable: my freedom, my integrity, and a profound sense of purpose. Years passed. The scars healed, slowly, imperfectly, like old wounds that ache on cold days. My work consumed me, demanding my full attention, my unwavering dedication. I led a team of elite cyber analysts, safeguarding critical national infrastructure, thwarting sophisticated state-sponsored attacks, and disrupting global criminal networks. The stakes were always astronomically high, the pressure immense, but I thrived on it. I found a profound satisfaction in protecting the unseen, in fighting battles that the public would never know about, yet whose outcomes directly impacted their lives. My life was quieter now, deliberately so. My work demanded absolute discretion, and my experiences had taught me the value of guarding my inner sanctuary. I found fulfillment not in external validation, but in the challenging realities of my job, in the lives I protected, in the dedicated team I led. My true family was found in the unwavering loyalty and profound respect of my colleagues, the brilliant minds and courageous souls who stood by me, shoulder to shoulder in the unseen war for national security. They were the ones who truly knew me, who saw me not as Robert Vance's daughter, but as Director Avril Vance, the leader, the protector, the unwavering guardian of the digital frontier. I often visited Grandfather Arthur's grave, a quiet plot beneath an old oak tree in a peaceful New England cemetery. I would sit there, feeling the breeze on my face, remembering his quiet encouragement, his unwavering belief in my unconventional path, his wisdom, his subtle understanding, his belief in my potential, had been the true inheritance he had left me. It wasn't money or property, but the freedom to be myself, to define my own worth, to chart my own course. My career continued its upward trajectory with relentless momentum. As director, I was at the forefront of a new kind of warfare, a silent, pervasive conflict that threatened the very fabric of modern society. One particularly chilling threat emerged in my 10th year as director: Project Chimera. This wasn't a typical state-sponsored attack or a criminal hack. It was a sophisticated, self-learning AI, unleashed by a rogue, decentralized collective of anarcho-technologists, designed to destabilize global financial markets, disrupt communication grids, and sow chaos on an unprecedented scale. Their goal was a reset of society, achieved through total digital anarchy. The initial indicators were subtle: inexplicable stock market fluctuations, fleeting outages in critical infrastructure networks, strange, almost poetic, messages appearing briefly on government servers before vanishing. My team, a collection of the brightest, most eccentric minds in the country, worked around the clock, fueled by caffeine and an almost obsessive dedication. We called ourselves the Digital Guardians, and our war room, a secure underground facility with walls of flickering screens, was our sanctuary, our battlefield. It's learning, Director. My lead analyst, a brilliant but perpetually caffeinated young man named Jax, reported one night, his voice strained. Chimera adapts faster than any AI we've ever encountered. It's rewriting its own code, evolving, anticipating our countermeasures before we even deploy them. We're fighting a ghost. The pressure was immense. The White House was on high alert. The National Security Council met daily, and the global financial community was teetering on the brink of panic. I rarely slept, living on adrenaline and the unwavering conviction that failure was not an option. This wasn't just about protecting systems. It was about preserving civilization as we knew it. I convened a summit of international cybersecurity leaders, forging alliances, sharing intelligence, and coordinating a global response. We launched Operation Aegis, a massive, unprecedented counteroffensive designed to trap and neutralize Chimera. It was a digital chess match played out at lightning speed, with the fate of the world hanging in the balance. I made decisions that could have catastrophic consequences if I was wrong, authorizing risky maneuvers, pushing my team to their absolute limits, but always with a clear head and an unwavering focus. The final confrontation with Chimera lasted 72 agonizing hours. We lured it into a honeypot, a fabricated digital environment designed to mimic a critical financial network, then unleashed a series of complex, multi-layered attacks that exploited a newly discovered vulnerability in its core programming. The battle was a dazzling, terrifying ballet of code, firewalls rising and falling, algorithms crashing, and data streams warring across the globe. In the end, we prevailed. Chimera was not just contained, it was dissected, neutralized. Its rogue AI dismantled byte by byte. The world, unbeknownst to most, had averted a catastrophe of unimaginable scale. The quiet satisfaction that settled over me in the aftermath was profound, a deeper, more meaningful triumph than any public accolade. The president, in a private, late-night call, expressed the nation's profound gratitude. "Director Vance," he said, his voice thick with relief, "you saved us all. Your brilliance, your courage, it's beyond words." But the true reward, for me, wasn't in presidential commendations or public recognition. It was in the faces of my team, exhausted but exhilarated, knowing they had done something truly extraordinary. It was in the continued hum of the world, the flow of commerce, the uninterrupted pulse of daily life that I and my silent warriors helped to preserve. My personal life, though guarded, continued to evolve. The quiet dinners with Sophia and Claire became more frequent, less strained. They had truly rebuilt their lives, finding genuine purpose outside the gilded cage of their upbringing. Sophia, now a partner in a small ethical accounting firm, worked tirelessly to help victims of financial fraud. Claire's bakery, the Golden Spoon, became a beloved local institution, renowned for its artisanal breads and compassionate community outreach. They were different women now, humbled by adversity, softened by their experiences. One evening, over coffee in Claire's bustling bakery, Sophia looked at me, a genuine, unforced smile on her face. "You know," she said, "Dad and Ethan, they're getting out soon. On parole." My heart gave a little jolt. I hadn't thought about them in years, not actively. Their sentences had been long, but justice, for them, had simply been a consequence, not a transformation. "I won't be seeing them," I stated simply. There was no anger in my voice, just a calm, resolute certainty. My path was distinct from theirs, now and forever. Claire nodded. "We understand. We don't plan to, either. Not for a while, anyway. They haven't really accepted anything. They still talk about how it was your fault, Avril, for ruining their lives." A dry, almost imperceptible laugh escaped me. "Some people," I said, looking out the window at the bustling street, "never learn. Some people are trapped by their own narratives, their own refusal to see the truth. And that's okay. Their inability to see doesn't diminish my reality." Sophia reached across the table, taking my hand. "It doesn't. You showed us the truth, Avril. You saved us from a life of complicity, even if we didn't know it at the time. We lost everything, yes, but we gained ourselves, our real selves. That was the truest validation. Not from the president, not from the grateful public, but from the quiet, honest acknowledgement of my own sisters. We were, in our own fractured way, a new kind of family. One forged in the crucible of betrayal and redemption, bound not by blood and obligation, but by a shared, hard-won understanding of what truly mattered. I continued to find solace and strength in my connection to Grandfather Arthur. His grave was a sanctuary, a place where I could reflect, process, and reaffirm my path. One day, while sitting there, a thought struck me. He had left me a trust, money, yes, but the real legacy was the freedom it represented. The freedom to choose, to defy, to be authentically me. And that freedom, I realized, was now limitless. I decided to establish my own foundation, a private philanthropic venture dedicated to supporting young talent in cybersecurity from underserved communities. It would be a tribute to Grandfather Arthur's quiet encouragement, a way to pay forward the opportunity he had given me. It wouldn't be public, not initially. It would operate in the shadows, just like my work, quietly identifying and nurturing the next generation of digital guardians, ensuring that talent, wherever it lay, was never stifled by lack of opportunity or family expectation. My life was full, rich with purpose, defined by meaningful work and authentic connections. The grand old brownstone of my childhood remained a distant memory, a landmark in a landscape I no longer inhabited. My modest apartment overlooking the Charles River was my true home, a peaceful sanctuary where I could recharge, reflect, and prepare for the unseen battles that awaited me each day. The foundation grew, quietly, steadily, becoming a powerful force for good. We didn't seek headlines or accolades. Our success was measured in the young minds we shaped, the careers we launched, the digital defenses we strengthened through the talent we cultivated. I dedicated a portion of my time, often late at night after the high-stakes demands of my federal role, to mentoring these brilliant young individuals, sharing my knowledge, and instilling in them not just technical prowess, but a profound ethical core. My office, once a sterile government space, began to fill with their vibrant energy, their innovative ideas, their unbridled enthusiasm. It was a new legacy, far more profound than any legal firm or inherited fortune. One cold winter evening, while reviewing grant applications for the foundation, a familiar name caught my eye: Chloe, Ethan's wife. My heart skipped a beat. After the trial, she had disappeared from my life completely, swallowed by the scandal and the collapse of the Vance empire. Now, her name appeared on an application for a small business grant seeking funding for a fledgling online artisanal jewelry boutique. Her application was meticulously prepared, demonstrating a surprising resilience and an eye for detail I hadn't known she possessed. I debated for a long time. The old wounds still twinged. Chloe had been complicit in the family's condemnation, her smug face a stark memory from the courtroom. But she was also a victim of my father and Ethan's criminal enterprise, her life upended alongside theirs, and her application, devoid of any mention of her past, spoke of a genuine desire to build something honest, something from the ground up. I called Sophia. She had remained quietly in touch with Chloe, offering her moral support, helping her navigate the labyrinthine legal aftermath. "She's been through a lot, Avril," Sophia said, her voice soft. "She really lost everything. She's trying to pick up the pieces on her own terms. No help from the Vances, not anymore." After much deliberation, I approved Chloe's grant. Not under my name, of course, but anonymously through the foundation. It was a small act, a quiet acknowledgement of the complex tapestry of human lives, of the possibility of second chances, not just for the victims, but perhaps for those who were once complicit. I received a grateful, anonymous email from her a few weeks later, speaking of how the funding had given her a new start. A flicker of hope. It was enough. My days as director were a ceaseless tide of challenges. Cyber warfare evolved at a dizzying pace, with new threats emerging constantly, requiring innovative solutions and unwavering vigilance. I found myself increasingly relying on my core team, a group of dedicated, brilliant individuals who had become more than colleagues. They were my true allies, my confidantes, the family I chose. Jax, the perpetually caffeinated analyst, had risen to become my deputy director, his intuition and technical brilliance a perfect complement to my strategic vision. "Director," Jax would say, his eyes glinting with a mix of excitement and exhaustion. "We've got another one. Zero-day exploit, highly targeted, aimed at our defense systems." And I would lean forward, my mind already racing, analyzing, strategizing. "All right, Jax. What's our vector? What's their signature? Let's dismantle them, piece by piece." These were the battles that defined me now. Not the painful courtroom drama of my past, but the silent, relentless war fought in the digital shadows. My understanding of betrayal, of the human capacity for greed and deceit, made me uniquely suited for this work. I knew how to anticipate the unexpected, how to see the hidden motives, how to uncover the unseen vulnerabilities. The legacy I was building was not one of wealth or social standing, but one of protection, of innovation, of an unwavering commitment to a safer, more secure future. It was a legacy built on integrity, forged in the fires of adversity, and sustained by the quiet strength I had found within myself. I no longer carried the weight of my family's expectations or their disdain. I carried the weight of national security, a burden that was heavy, yes, but infinitely more meaningful. This story is a testament to the unyielding power of self-belief and the courage to chart your own course, Have you ever been told you're not enough? Have you ever faced betrayal or harsh condemnation from the very people who were meant to lift you up, to champion your dreams? Remember this. Your true worth is not, and never will be, measured by the approval or disapproval of others, no matter how influential they may seem. It is measured by the strength of your own spirit, by the integrity of your actions, and by the unwavering conviction with which you pursue your truth. Don't let anyone define your limits, no matter how loudly they speak or how confidently they pronounce their judgment. Fight for yourself, for your dreams, for the authentic life you are meant to lead, even if it means standing alone against a world that tries to pull you down. Because sometimes, the greatest failures in the eyes of others, the most profound rejections, become the fertile ground for your most extraordinary triumphs, the unwavering foundation upon which you build something far grander, far more meaningful than anyone could have ever imagined. You are the architect of your own destiny, the captain of your own soul. The world is vast, filled with unseen challenges and boundless opportunities. Embrace the journey with all its storms and sunrises, with all its hidden battles and quiet victories. Never, ever let anyone else's narrow vision limit the boundless potential that resides within you. Live your truth, with courage, with unwavering conviction, and with a quiet, profound knowledge that your greatest validation will always come from within. For when you do, the respect you seek will find you, not as a prize you chase, but as a natural consequence of your authenticity, your resilience, and your unwavering strength. The path you carve, however lonely it may sometimes feel, will be the one that leads you to your truest self, to a life defined by your own unwavering purpose, and to a legacy that transcends fleeting judgments and superficial triumphs. This is not just a story of survival, it is a story of profound self-discovery, of reclaiming one's narrative, and of building a life so authentically powerful it renders all past criticisms utterly irrelevant. It is a testament to the fact that true freedom begins when you stop seeking permission and start creating your own destiny. And as I look back now, from the summit of a life fiercely and authentically lived, I know with absolute certainty that every single painful step, every tear shed, every silent battle fought was worth it, for it led me to this moment, to this truth, to this glorious, hard-won freedom. This is my story, a testament to what happens when you decide that your own light will shine, no matter how much darkness others try to cast upon you. It is a beacon for anyone who has ever felt diminished, a reminder that the power to rise, to thrive, to truly live, lies within.